What do we learn from a 5-match bilateral T20 international series? I'm not sure because we don't really have a lot of 5-match bilateral T20 international series.
This is the last knock. It is very good, but I'd rather play Minecraft.
Like, are these teams evenly matched? Was it a bit fluky? Was it dew related? Was it toss related? Is Rahul really not good enough to play for India because he failed in like a couple of games? I find that hard to believe. Or can we put everything that happened down to a kind of a ludicrously small sample size? People will read a lot into this, but that's okay because people read a lot into most things that happen in international cricket, even though that this is maybe a third of what a proper T20 league would be. Let me explain this by telling you about the greatest NBA team in the world at the moment, the Denver Nuggets. Over the first 5 games of their season, they were 1-4. Throw away their jerseys, burn them. Especially as they were in the top 4 teams in the competition last year. Since that, they've played 36 games and they've won 24 and lost 12. That's the thing. That's what happens in a real league. You go through these little rough patches. So what does that tell us about India and England? Not to mention, cricket makes all this tougher because we have the pitch, which is one of sport's oddest variables at the best of times. And there's also dew and tosses and all these sorts of things that really affect the game more than anything else. And at least we got 5 games. How many bilateral series are like 1, 2, 3 games? They're nothing at all. They're, farts in the wind. But bilateral series also bring other problems like matchup issues. Now you might be sitting there going, well, wait a minute, these bilateral things, I feel like we've been playing those in cricket for over 100 years. We have, you're right, in test matches, which is a completely different thing. In test matches, the best team generally wins just because they go on for forever. You aren't limited to a number of balls or maximum overs bowled or anything like that. They could just go on. Think back to Ireland destroying England at the first day at Lord's in their historic first test. England just slowly worked their way back into the game. That's harder to do in T20. And India are a perfect example of this. If you look at India, the test team, versus India, the T20 team, you can see that India win 3 games for every 1 loss in test cricket. It's closer to 2 games and every 1 loss in T20. And they're the best team in both of those formats, right? And the win ratios aren't even similar. If you can win 66% of your games in T20, you're godlike. Whereas that just makes you a really good test team. There's a huge difference there. And we make all of this weirder by the fact that we don't really play T20 internationals at all. Since the last World Cup, which wasn't even called a World Cup, it was so long ago, in April 2016, only 3 teams have played more than 50 games in that time. India, Pakistan, and the West Indies. There have been another 5 teams that have played over 40 games, and South Africa, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan have 103 games combined. This is from the Dawud Malan video I made the other day. So if you're looking for more Dawud Malan content, I've already done Dawud Malan. Dawud Malan is done. This amount of games here took Dawud Malan almost 5 years. And yeah, he was in and out the team a little bit. But these are the seasons of other major sports. It's not even really comparable. Although, as good as Dawud Malan is on this, I love Kieron Pollard. This is all of West Indies T20 internationals. And this is all of Kieron Pollard's non-T20 internationals. Yeah. So teams haven't quite adjusted to the T20 era of thinking, and some games are just disposable and better to be used for experience or experimenting. But while I know T20 should be treated that way, it's hard to do in the middle of a 5-match bilateral series against potentially the team you're going to have to go up against in the World Cup final. England has to use this series to prepare for the World Cup. These are England's last competitive games in T20 in India before that next World Cup. They might get some warm-ups, although we don't even know if that will happen. They kind of have to use this to get everything they can out of it. But it doesn't matter if they lose 5-0, it just matters that they are better when they get to the World Cup. It wouldn't have even mattered if India lost 5-0, although at home, they probably would not have wanted to do that. One of the big things for England was just taking more wickets in the power play, and they seem to kind of work that out, and how much bowling they want in the team in general. India has to work out what batters they want, and also how they want those batters to, bat. Have they got an answer on KL Rahul? I don't know, but they might think they have. I mean, it was only 4 straight games. I haven't looked into his overall record to see if there's a big slide there, but if they gave him 4 games, it seems that India trusted him coming in. I think we saw with Joe Root recently, you can have 4 bad games or 3 bad games and everyone completely changes how they think about you almost straight away. I kind of think that KL Rahul was just a couple of edges through a vacant slip cordon or a drop catch away from, making enough runs to make himself feel more confident and go back to the KL Rahul who used to, bash the ball everywhere. Perhaps the bigger problem with KL Rahul is that he's turned himself into an anchor. In India seems to either turn everyone into anchors or only choose anchors. And this isn't just a T20 thing. This is something they do in ODIs as well. They protect their wickets and value the players who do the same thing. So while many of us analyst types now believe the best option is to go in with 1 anchor, India went in at times in this series with 4? And this is supposed to be the series when they attacked more. And for a lot of this series, they hadn't been able to just because they kept losing wickets at the top. Even when they weren't over-attacking, they just lost wickets at the top. So they picked all these anchors and then lost a lot of wickets. And then later in the series, they seemed to play with more freedom and score quicker. You see what I'm saying? It's confusing sometimes. Sometimes it's just the pitches. So I'm not sure that India have actually answered that many questions. Sure, Ishan Kishan and Surya Kumar could, potentially replace KL Rahul. And Iyer and Sky could have spots further down the order as well, I suppose. But I'm not sure there's any, dead set certainties going forward for India. And the thing is that they'll know more when they play in the IPL, which is almost always the case because there's a lot of games in the IPL. And players generally get to play their best role, especially when they're stars. And India chopped and changed a lot. Remember, Sky played 1 game and didn't bat and was dropped. I suppose the good thing is that India would have to say that they have quite a few players of talent to pick from. Which one of those players they want and how they want those players to bat, that's another question. But it's not the worst question to have coming into a World Cup. England again found a way to create just intensely interesting problems for themselves. Moeen Ali now has played 1 professional match over 2 tours. Now he might play some more in the ODIs, which is good because he's probably bored out of his mind. But let's go back to Moeen Ali's tours for a moment. Moeen's had COVID. Watch the work experience, kid. Gone home. Was rested for the white ball games and was rested in the white ball games. Before this series, Owen Morgan said that Moeen Ali was worth his weight in gold. What a way to find out that gold just isn't worth that much. I don't think there's ever been an international team in the history of cricket that has ever planned more diligently than England do at the moment. They really go all in. And yet, when they balls it up, they make an even bigger mess than had they not touched anything at all. The treatment of Moeen Ali and Dom Bess in this Asian adventure has been just ludicrous, realistically. They took a very competent spin bowling all-rounder and a very good young prospect who can spin the ball a little bit and hold the bat a little bit, and they just kind of mashed up their minds and didn't get the most out of them. And at this stage, if they even know where they should be pointed before their next innings, they should get a gold medal or a kiss on the cheek. England could not have made this a more massive shit sandwich if they had planned to make a massive shit sandwich. But the thing is, part of the reason that Moeen Ali didn't play in this is because England wanted, seam bowlers. They wanted to go all in with their seam bowlers and their pace. And to be fair, it worked pretty well. You had Wood, Jofra, Stokes, a bunch of Currans, if I remember correctly. And it worked because, as a wise man once said, pace is pace. Yeah? There's a couple of funny things about England having all this pace bowling. I think the first thing that is funny about it is that England has all this pace bowling. Seriously quick bowling. They just seem to find a lot of it. Mark Wood and Jofra Archer at times were terrifying together. And it's not like Chris Jordan and Ben Stokes are particularly slow. And England just being one of the fastest teams in the world is just, it seems wrong. It seems wrong. But the other interesting thing is they're trialing this out in India. It's not kind of what Western teams do when they go to India, is it? Usually you pick a really young spinner and try and ruin them. In this series, it more looked like Sam Curran was the guy they were trying to ruin. And their pace bowlers did so well that they could actually play around with Sam Curran's role a little bit. Early in the series, he swung the ball at the top, and then they just went, okay, we get that. You can do that. We understand. Now you're going to bowl your first over in the 9th over. Ooh, see how you go. Now you're going to bowl your first over in the 11th over. Ooh. Now you're going to bowl your first over in the 13th over? When he hadn't done that at all for England before, they just kept throwing him into random situations to see how he would go. All the while, Ben Stokes is bowling like the cushy 7th and 8th over. You know, he might as well have been coming in on a sofa. And that's probably not a bad idea, because if Sam Curran plays in the IPL, he's probably never going to bowl his first over in the 13th over unless something has gone horrendously wrong. I think it's funny, very funny, extremely funny, that this entire series of bilateral T20s has almost not been about spin at all. Because I don't know if you watched the test series, right? But people kept mentioning spin bowling like a lot. England only picked one spinner for the entire series and they used him as an opening bowler. India axed Akshar Patel. They then got rid of Chahal. Sundar bowled well and then wasn't really used in the last game. And Chahar has this really weird thing in his run-up, which I can't get behind. I like freaky leg spin, man, but I don't know about this. And somehow, again, England spinners were the most interesting, just because Adil Rashid bowled on his own and did open the bowling. And also, England are turning him into, well, if not an off-spinner, then at least an algorithmic bowler.
Where it's like, you will bowl to this matchup, you will bowl to this matchup. Why did I go to my robot voice?
And I think for India, the biggest bowling question is really not so much about the spin, although they're certainly not all in on their spinners at the moment, but it seems to be whether they want Hardik Pandya to be the 5th bowler or the 6th bowler. I like him as a 6th bowler. I think he's a good 6th bowler. You don't have to trust him, but then on good days it works, and him and Washington Sundar can sort of, Jesus, hit the microphone. That was supposed to, I did it again. What? That was supposed to be dovetail. Is it? As much as I like Hardik, I just think going into World Cup knockout games with him as your 5th bowler is risky, but that's not to say I didn't think he bowled really well at times, because he bowled really well at times in this series. I like that they used him with the new ball. I like that he was bowling. Not that long ago, he wasn't even bowling. Also, with him playing as the 5th bowler, it means their batting lineup just goes longer, which should mean that their top order feel freer to express themselves. Although their top score was in the game where he batted at 6 and wasn't in their top 5 bowlers. I don't know, man. Sometimes bilateral games are just a bit like that. Sometimes in short series, things like that just happen. Also, both teams just went in with very divergent plans or strategies on how to use these 5 games the best. England would have gone in with the same 11 for every single game if they could have. They basically said, this is our 11. We trust this 11. This 11's going to go and go and go. And Tom Curran's game was more through, injury than anything else. That's one way of doing it. You get a good sample size there. You get a good look at everyone. You don't give the players just outside the 11 the experience that they might need in the actual World Cup itself. But you do say to your players, these are your roles. This is what you're going to do. These are the pitches. Go and do stuff. And India was completely different. They tried 16 players. And, if it wasn't for COVID, they might have tried 2 or 3 more just for kicks. They dropped a batter in one game and brought in a bowler. It was mad. They used 2 different leg spinners. They tried 4 spinners and 7 or 8 different batters at different times. There was a lot going on with India. So what is the better way of using your 5 games? I don't know. There's an IPL coming up. You're going to see your players anyway. Do you want to groove the players that you're pretty sure on? Or do you want to see who the best players are before they have this other audition coming up? I don't know. At one stage, I looked down at my notebook about these teams and I realized I had more questions than there were players that India had tried in this series. And the 5-match bilateral series didn't really answer that many of my questions. I think these are 2 very good T20 teams, and I think they played each other 5 times, and I think one team won 3 games and the other team won 2. I think KL Rahul was dropped. I think Dawid Malan has confused people more. I think England like pace bowling. India want Hardik to be a bowling all-rounder. Chris Jordan can take a catch. Sky can hit a ball. And we might have found out that Shardul Thakur is the best early death bowler that India have ever found when it comes to cutters, both off and leg cutters. But I can't shake the feeling that a bit like the Denver Nuggets, what we're really going to find out about these players is probably in that big league thing with all the games in it, not the little league thing with the 5 games in it.